Every YouTuber that's ever YouTubed has probably at some point used TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is an extension that essentially makes it easier to be successful on YouTube. They help you craft good thumbnails, analyze your competitors, do some keyword research, a lot of stuff like that. It's very likely that you've heard of it before. But the UI makes it truly difficult to understand what it is that they bring to the table as an extension. It's quite clunky and, in my opinion, very hard to use. I didn't even know that half of the features they offer exist until I dug around on the platform for an hour or so. So today, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna redesign at least the homepage and the main navigation and all that other stuff to really make the core features that TubeBuddy offers shine. And I know the TubeBuddy guys are YouTubers themselves. They may watch this at some point. The Figma file's in the description if you just want to steal it. Please steal it. But enough design mumbo jumbo. Let's just redesign this bad boy. Part of the reason why TubeBuddy feels a little stale is that they're using Open Sans as the primary font for the product, and it doesn't really have lots of variation in the different types of weights you can use, and it also is a little bit overused. So first thing we'll do, as always, is introduce a more modern font such as Work Sans, which is significantly more weights that we can use throughout the product to pull visual attention whenever we need to. The next thing we're going to tackle is all of these little call to actions off on the right here. It seems like we could get the bulk of the value of these call to actions by just putting them in the header somewhere. They don't need to necessarily be on the homepage because I don't need to be reminded about the affiliate program, for example, every single time I log into the app. So we can keep it persistent by putting it into the header, and that way it's not taking up valuable real estate where we want to put something else. First, we're going to actually lighten the header. We're going to go for a lighter aesthetic here, and then we're also going to give it a little bit more breathing room. Giving UI elements their appropriate padding can often make them feel a little more professional. It does feel a little bit busy when things are jammed right up against each other. Unfortunately, we do have to apply a pretty significant treatment to the logo here because the typeface they're using is just extremely thin. It's not very readable. So we're going to use the Work Sans font and just bump it up to semi-bold and just slide that in there. And on the right, we will replace all of the call to actions with a link to visit my channel, which will naturally open up the TubeBuddy extension if I have it installed. So a little change in verbiage there. A persistent call to action to upgrade if I'm still on, say, a free plan. And then an account menu, and you'll recognize most of these options here from those previous call to actions on the homepage itself. And now that they're in the menu, we can just get rid of them from the body here. Next, we'll tackle the primary navigation. Again, we'll lighten it and increase the padding significantly. And there's not very many links here, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but there seems to be a second navigation deeper in the product UI that has way more useful, meaningful information that I feel would be more appropriate to display in a primary nav. So we're going to take these links, introduce them to the primary nav, but then nest them in a way that we're not just spamming the user with a bunch of links. So we'll start with the dashboard, of course. Then we'll drop in analytics. Of course, we can add sublinks below there if we want to. And then we'll just go ahead and throw all of the other primary links underneath that. We've got this channel picker here, and it makes sense that one TubeBuddy account would be associated with many different channels. People often have secondary and tertiary channels, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to be in this position. Naturally, if I'm switching a channel, I'm kind of changing context for the entire application, so something like that should probably be in the header. And we've got this nice blank space up here. Why don't we just pop that in there, and then you can swap between channels or add a new one by clicking on that control directly. We've also got all of these quick links that seem to be there to save users time, right? Like, these are the common actions that people do when they log into TubeBuddy. But again, what if I want to access quick links from somewhere else in the product? Do I have to be on the homepage to use quick links? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. We should probably put it somewhere in the navigation, and we do have this space up here. We can pop some quick actions in here and then have a little popover that shows all of these actions ranked by how often they're used and allows users to search through them at will. And since the new primary navigation pretty strongly indicates to the user that we're on the dashboard, we don't need this additional label telling them that we're on the homepage. So we're just going to get rid of this altogether as well. So now we have this blank canvas. What would we put here that would be relevant and useful to someone who's subscribed and using TubeBuddy actively? Well, remember that previous analytics page I showed you? This is something that I would imagine most people would be very interested in seeing the moment they hit the TubeBuddy dashboard. So we're going to try and recreate something similar on the homepage. First though, I've noticed that the TubeBuddy product has a lot of different features. There's so many things you can use, and I felt a little overwhelmed when I first signed up for it. So why don't we just have a little persistent wizard that helps me get started with the product by walking me through the most commonly used features. And again, we're using color here to indicate to the user that something has to happen. Clicking on this link, for instance, would take me to the A/B test landing page where I could create some tests if I needed to. Next, we're going to give the user a high-level understanding of how their channel has just been performing in recent history. And some good metrics for that are subscribers, naturally. And then it's just always interesting to see how many cumulative views your channel's gotten over the past 30 days. There's a whole bunch of other metrics that are already on the stats page, but we can apply some usability treatments to make these inline stats look a little bit more clean and easy to digest. Lastly, we could just show all of the top content that's been performing well on your channel over the past 30 days, just to get a rough idea of where I should maybe focus my efforts and learn what's working and what's not. So a lovely little table here with all of my recent videos in the past 30 days and how they've been performing relative to each other. And that's more or less the dashboard, but it does feel like a bit of a flashbang. So let's go ahead and add a dark mode for all of the cave trolls out there that don't like looking at bright screens. Cool, and I think this UI overall does a much better job of showcasing the broad range of features and tools that TubeBuddy brings to the table. It's a genuinely useful product, but everything's kind of hidden behind lots and lots of complexity and confusion. So I'd imagine if they did swap to a UI like this, they'd probably see a significantly reduced churn in their product. People would say, oh, wow, there's actually a way for me to quickly launch an A/B test directly from the homepage. I didn't know about that. That's awesome. Like, I'm going to come back again and again and again. And this is why I often am trying to get to when I talk about design being functional and outcome oriented, right? Oftentimes when people see new fancy designs, they think, oh yeah, great, it's just a coat of paint. But it's really not, right? To me, design is kind of a puzzle. The solution is an interface that's extremely usable, that allows people to do the things that are meaningful and valuable to them in the product interface. And that's what good design is. If it looks pretty as well, great. I hope you found some meaning in this one. I hope you took a couple of nuggets of design insight here. And as always, have a wonderful week, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.